on the air and on the ground. Bringing you the voice of young people. You're listening to KIC Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the South Bank podcast. This is episode 23 after Wolves' emphatic win against Leicester. 3-0 this weekend at the Molineux as Wolves make it 6 in a row. Wolves' first 6 successive top-flight wins for the first time since 1970. Jacob, how are you feeling after this absolutely unbelievable Wolves hot streak?
Yeah, wow. It feels like, I think I've said it a few times on the weekend, it feels like this season has a part 1 and a part 2. Feels like a different season that we're in currently. Same group of players that ultimately I'm chuffed for because they've been doubted by not only Gary O'Neill before, but we saw Lopetegui doubt these players. We saw Bruno Lage doubt a lot of these players. And they're now showing... We did see us doubt these players, yes. But was that more to the fact of how they were being told to play by other managers? Who knows? But at the moment, we're flying, aren't we? So... it felt like going into Saturday, a lot of Wolves fans thought that could be the domino that makes it all fall over. It would be typical Wolves. But no, it was different under Vitor, different mindset, and we relatively easily put Leicester to bed.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. Team selection, as far as that goes, lined up as expected, really, I'd say, considering Bellegarde was injured. Cunha obviously keeping his place in the team. Guedes coming back into the bench after recent attitude problems. Vitor had said he had overcome these and displayed a different attitude in training the week prior. But let's get into the game itself. As Wolves certainly outfoxed the Foxes on Saturday. The lineup, again, as expected. But on the pitch, it did carry on the way they've been playing before. Wolves definitely on top in the opening half an hour, but not really making our chances count against a visibly poor Leicester side, I thought. You can really see why they are heading straight back down. I'm sure we said this last time we played Leicester. However, this team is just simply not good enough. Our first real chances included Cunha surging through the middle of the pitch and firing wide from some distance. And though it's some way, I almost expected better from him because of the quality of player he is and having no pressure on him. But I am being critical there, to say the least. Andre had a hit from distance when the keeper gave it away, which could have been a spectacular goal from almost the halfway line had it gone in, but it curled away from goal. Cody got on the end of a corner, but Sarr caught it comfortably. And Strand Larson almost got a reward for his pressing when the keeper booted it into him and then had to save it off his own goal line. I thought it was our high-intensity pressing really creating all of these chances within the first half an hour, Jacob. Wouldn't you agree?
In a sense, yeah, but I don't think we pressed as well as we have in other games. I think a lot of it was just to how poor Leicester were. You mentioned a fair abundance of chances there, but we were still left a bit to be desired in our open half an hour. We still hadn't got out of first gear, really, and I mean, we can't be too critical. Leicester didn't challenge us at all in this open half an hour until the first goal. But yeah, it just seemed like a very pedestrian game by Wolves where we knew that we were levels above the opposition, and Leicester showed more fights in the stands than on the pitch, it seemed, on Saturday. Really, really poor. And I mean, there's probably 6 teams in the Championship would beat that team that played Saturday. They were quite honking, to be honest. I struggled to find what Van Nistelrooy was even trying to do at times. It was almost seemed very inept, almost like a Mr. Gary O'Neill performance that we saw earlier in the year, where you're just scratching your head confused as to what they're actually trying to achieve here. They're playing almost so deep and trying to launch a ball up to an ageing Jamie Vardy against 3 centre-backs and then trying to start the press from there. It was just all over the place. They were there for the taking, definitely.
when you've got such physically dominating centre-backs such as Totti, Agbadou, and even Doherty with his height to an extent compared to the ageing Vardy, I'm not sure what they were trying to do either. I completely agree. Van Nistelrooy's coaching philosophy, I'm not quite sure what it was because I wasn't really seeing it transfer over to the players. However, like you said, I don't think we had to step out of first gear at all this whole game, really. I don't think there was a point where Wolves had to switch it up a notch to that second gear we've seen so many times across this run of 6. However, I think that shows that we are levels above the quality of this Leicester side, as if the table didn't show it enough already. We were 5 points behind Leicester when Vitor Pereira took over. Now we are 23 points clear of them, which is just ridiculous to think about. But there was some very cheeky link-up play going up along our left-hand side between Cunha and Aït-Nouri. There was a couple of chances where Cunha had one into the keeper's arms, another one where it got blocked, but he was the man to make Leicester pay with that first goal, wasn't he? The best chance so far, before that, I think was Aït-Nouri having an effort cleared off the line by Wout Faes again. A lot of commanding moves going up this left-hand side to attack the Leicester defence. But it was that link up on the left-hand side to create the goal. And a fantastic cross after 1-2s between Aït-Nouri and Cunha. Aït-Nouri fizzes it into the box, and all Cunha had to do was direct it towards the net, and albeit through the legs of Conor Cody. Jacob, how did you feel about that fantastic opening goal?
I think the finish from Cunha actually deserves a lot of praise. I think as much as it's quite a simple finish, a lot of players would have swung their front leg at it. And to make it hard, I think he lets it run across his body and just redirects it in. It's a player with confidence. It's a player who knew what it was going to the better option in that situation. I think had that been I know his finishing is very good, but had that been a Larson, we see him quite often would have swung a front leg at it or something and potentially missed. But yeah, very efficient from Cunha. Fantastic from Aït-Nouri. I remember just saying in the ground, that's all it takes. That's how simple it is against this team. A little bit of movement, and they're not going to be able to keep up with you. As much as we love Conor Cody, he just isn't. He's far from the player he was at Wolverhampton Wanderers. I remember mentioning it before this happened to my dad. There was a time where I think it was Semedo took him on, and I said, Conor Cody for Wolves that doesn't get past him when he was he gets the ball or takes the player probably. He seems to have lost that bit of hunger for Leicester, it seems to me. Couldn't see him commanding the back line as much as he did at Wolves either. That was very noticeable. Probably not enjoying his football as much as he did at Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's got to be said. But yeah, good opening goal. And that really set the tempo for the Leicester game. Any lingering of a chance that Leicester had, maybe Buonanotte pick up the ball, seemed to go after that point, and they just kind of seemed to cave in, even more so than what they already had.
Yeah, you can certainly see the mentality in that Leicester side with the way they just dropped off after that goal went in there. They'd resigned themselves to the loss almost immediately. Just to touch on a couple of the things you said there. You say Cunha deserves a lot of credit for that finish, and I do agree. I think Strand Larson, one of his chances in the second half, actually displays exactly what you're speaking about, where he does swing a leg out, and it was probably a tap-in, and he managed to hit it over the net itself. And I think that's the perfect example in the same game. And also, like you said, Conor Cody, wow, I completely agree. While he was clearly missing Molineux with what we saw after the game, with him applauding and waving the fans, I'm sure he will be the most sad for that January rumour wasn't true when he could have came for Dawson.
Would you take him back in the summer?
I would, but only as like a fifth choice centre back. I don't want to see him play. I want him for the dressing room. I want him there as backup, just in case, say, Agbadou got injured and he can slot in the centre of that back three. However, I wouldn't want to see him getting minutes, as much as that hurts me to say he's not the player he once was. But like you said, he wasn't quite displaying that hunger he did, all his leadership. And I thought his leadership was always his best quality. That was always why you had to start Connor Cody and why he got a game. But not only is he playing in a back four, which we've seen time and time again does not work for Connor Cody. He was playing on the left-hand side of it as a right footer. We all know Cody isn't comfortable with his left foot either, which I thought was a bizarre choice in itself. And then there were a few times when players took him on, like Semedo, like you said. I was thinking for our third goal when Cunha was the one taking him on, if that was Cody in a Wolves shirt, he just smashed straight through Cunha in that situation. And the attack would have dwindled out, but he was just trying and failing to hold him up enough to stop the goal. But we'll get on to that later on. Cody almost actually scored an own goal when he headed it back into the arms of his keeper towards the end of this half. It seemed like he was really trying to convince Wolves, hey, look, I'm still here for you. But I don't think it was the best night for the Englishman at Molineux. Jurgen Strand Larson had a couple chances towards the end of that first half to double the lead, but none of them were taken. A few of them were quite unlucky, it has to be said. But I think that's all for the first half. And then it's time to move on to the second. Jacob, what were your thoughts on the first half as a whole before we move on?
A pre-season game, wasn't it? Typical season, Leicester already relegated. You could sense how long the season it had been by the way the Leicester away fans were, celebrating things like wins, the ball being not in their half, etc. But yeah, it was really just when we were going into the game, I was thinking we might make it a bit difficult for ourselves today, but it soon settled my nerves of they are gash. Like, they are absolutely terrible. They have no disrespect to Leicester as a football club, but they have no place in this Premier League as a team currently. As has been displayed this year, they are miles off it, and they need a big rebuild, whether that's this summer or moving into next year. Me personally, I think Van Nistelrooy's not the way. He will probably stick around for next year and probably do okay in the Championship because their team will be as a better calibre. But for me, he is nowhere near the man to take you forward. They'd have been in a better position with Steve Cooper. I still believe they'd have gone down to Steve Cooper, but I don't think it would be quite the embarrassing thing that it has been. As you mentioned, they were similar points to us when Vitor came in.
Yeah, we were 5 points behind them.
Yeah, and now we're 23 points ahead.
Yeah,
which just shows how much they've plateaued. In fact, they haven't even plateaued, they've got worse. But yeah, positive enough going to the second half. I think the feeling around Molineux, which is a new one, was very calm going into a second half where we just I don't think anyone was under the illusion we were going to chuck it away in that second half.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Wolves definitely in cruise control, it seemed. Touching on some of the things you said, I'm not actually sure Van Nistelrooy might stick around when it comes to next season. There were reports that he might leave as soon as January at the time, if you remember, where he was reportedly unhappy with promises not being kept regarding players he expected to be brought in, because let's face it, we all see that Leicester squad is not good enough to stay in the league any way you put it. So I'm not surprised that his anger was directed towards the owners. I think it's quite shocking to see the fall off of Leicester in recent years. It wasn't even that long ago they won the FA Cup, and yet here they are having a second relegation in 3 seasons, which is just shocking. Again, it speaks volumes as to the strength of the Premier League itself. I just really find it shocking that it's becoming a 17-team league in the manner it is. All 3 promoted teams going down for its successive year. It's the first time that's happened in a very long time, though I can't remember the stat itself. But it's time to move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers, because that's what we're all here for. Let's talk about that second half. Wolves' first real chance in that second half was Outfox surging forward on that left-hand side. Wolves committed a lot of bodies forward for this attack. Outfox had a shot blocked by Kunichi, unfortunately, and then it fell into the path of Cunha, who then fires it at the keeper, and then again it falls to Jurgen Strand Larson, who, as we previously mentioned in the first half, fails to tap it home. He really should have scored there, shouldn't he, Jacob?
Wow, I think I could name you several inanimate objects in my house that would score that goal. It's truly terrible. As Larson knew himself, which we'll get onto after his celebration for the goal, which is quite comical. But yeah, I mean, it was ping pong anyway, wasn't it? Like you mentioned, Manetzi, bless him, doesn't really know what day of the week it is, it seems, going forward. But getting him with it, no his shot. It was like ping pong in that box, and a half decent team would have got it clear by the time it got to Strand Larson. But yeah, how he managed to miss that was ridiculous. He can laugh about it afterwards, but he's a lucky boy when he can, because really hell, imagine how he would have been feeling if that would have been the reason we lost our winning streak and Leicester went up the other end of the scored. Thankfully, they never looked like doing it, aside from one chance we'll get to later. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, Leicester seeming quite toothless in attack. It was on his left foot, I think it's probably worth saying, although I don't think there's any real excuse. As you said, it was like a pinball machine ricocheting around that box at the time. Leicester had a half chance. Kunichi firing wide. Looked like he had a bit of steam in the shot, but can we really call it a half chance? It was quite wide. Jose Sarr was very comfortable, didn't even make an effort to save it, but it was some velocity. I think Kunichi is one of those players. I think he could do well at a better team. I do see him getting a move to the Premier League or abroad from Leicester. But it wasn't long before we did get our second. Matheus Cunha, what a ridiculous ball, like a hot knife through butter to cut through that midfield and defence, straight to the feet of Jurgen Strand Larson, who, credit to him, while we have both criticised his first touch many times in the past, perfect touch, and then dispatches it emphatically into the bottom corner. Great goal for 2-0, and just what we needed to stamp that victory, because let's face it, although Leicester did have a chance later on, we did not expect them to come back into this at all after this, did we?
No, we didn't. And I want to give more credit. I want to give you more credit to Strand Larson. He actually starts the attack. He plays the initial ball out to Cunha, and then makes the run inside. And like you say, Cunha, like a knife through butter. What a pass to pick him out between two defenders, and take nothing away from Larson. He's still got a lot to do. A much harder finish than the one he missed. But a fantastic run. And like you said, the first touch is perfect because he messes that up. It's going to either one of the defenders either side of him, but just managed to keep it in his control. And the finish is fantastic. Just a striker with confidence, it seemed, in that moment. Like I say, his celebration, taking the mick out of the one he just missed before. A new Strand Larson emote unlocked, it seems, where he's kicking up into the South Bank high up. But yeah, we knew. Well, I think we knew at 1-0 that Leicester were unlikely to get back in the game. At 2-0, it seemed basically impossible, as horrible the scoreline as 2-0 is. Against this Leicester team, it seemed more than a reasonable enough margin, and they just couldn't keep up with a player like Matheus Cunha, could they? I mean, they don't have a single player in that team who can play a ball like that, and I don't think many teams do, to be fair. We forgot to mention with Matheus's goal, there was a lot of chance surrounding the speculative move to Manchester United, with a few choice words for the Manchester club that was sung last Sunday quite a lot. I don't think Matheus quite caught on to what we were singing, though, because he started giving it a bit of a fist bump. I'm sure his future employers probably won't be too happy about it if they see it. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because we were 18 points behind Manchester United when Vitor came in. We're now, 2 points ahead of them?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's only after they snatched a victory from the hands of Bournemouth.
Yeah, they did.
Against 10 men as well, may I add, from the 76th minute, was it? Evan Nilsson got sent off in that game.
I will say United weren't bad that game, to be fair. They were
I agree,
better than they have been in other weeks, but yeah, it's still not convincing. They're not a better outfit than us at the minute for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. That United, while they, like you say, weren't playing badly. To compare it to the United of recent weeks, that's not a great team either. They've been awful, quite frankly. 6 points off them for us this season, which puts a smile on my face. However, yeah, is it a sideways step? If they don't end up winning the Europa League, Mateus, why would you go there? Not to say I don't expect him to leave either way, but are you sure there's not better clubs interested in you at that point, where you could be playing European football? Although, with the Fabrizio rumour mill starting to spin rapidly, it does look like United will be the place he ends up, and I'll be very surprised now if he doesn't go there. But
See, I don't know. I think, yes, if you're a betting man, you're going to put it on Manchester United. But I don't know. If they don't win that Europa League, I think, how much of this is agent based? How much is this Mateus' agent trying to tell other clubs, look, Mateus is available for a decent sum of money. If they don't win this Europa League, what is the attraction aside from it being Manchester United? If I'm Mateus Cunha
fat
and
wage.
Manchester, well, there is that, but Manchester United are interested in me, and Arsenal, or Mateus take the pick of the bunch really, are interested in me. I'm opting for the London club over Manchester United any day of the week at the moment.
Completely agree. Definitely the right move in my eyes. I think Arsenal, you're going to win something there most likely in the next couple of years. United, I just don't see that. Regardless of if they win the Europa League this year, next year, they're not going to win the Champions League. They're not going to win the Prem. That team will take years to win anything. And while I understand Mateus could go there and be the star man yet again, which may be part of the incentive in my eyes as to why he wants to go to Manchester United, to walk in that team and become their best or second best, if you're going to say Bruno's better, player in that team. For a team like United, I do understand the appeal there when he would be getting consistent European football. However, I'm not sure it's the right move for him, but if it's him or whether it's his agent who convinced him that it is, then we're yet to see. But that's more speculation for the summer. I just keep seeing so much propaganda suddenly being posted by the Premier League official pages as well recently, I'd like to add, all about raving about Mateus Cunha. And I feel like a lot of outside sources who don't normally report on Wolves are suddenly reporting on the Cunha carried Wolves. But this unbeaten run, it didn't start because of Cunha. It started because he got suspended. And I think people are starting to forget that because of his recent performances. But the Spurs game, may I add, he scored, yes, but that was already won. United game, he was awful. And this game, I would have expected to win it anyway, regardless of Mateus playing against Leicester, while he was, without a doubt, the best player on the pitch Saturday. But that's me swallowing a bitter pill because I don't want to see us worse off without Cunha. I'm just worried as to see whether Fosun spend the money. But I think this is more a topic of discussion for later on. I think it's time to get back into the actual game because we have got a bit distracted. Leicester, they did have a chance to get back in this game. The best chance you could ask for, a penalty for Jamie Vardy, who had just announced his retirement midweek. But that didn't seem to tint the eyes of the Molineux faithful, who had some very choice words to chant to Jamie Vardy before this. And we thought it was all in the script when he suddenly got awarded a penalty, which, may I add, didn't get a VAR review. But I think it definitely should have.
Yeah.
We've all seen those replays in the highlights packages. Jamie Vardy hooks his leg into Jose Sarr, who had completely avoided Jamie Vardy and come for the ball. Jamie Vardy, obviously very experienced talisman. That's why he's so good. He knows these things. He knows he can hook his leg in there and get the contact for a penalty. But I'm shocked he got one at all because he definitely shouldn't have. I'm sure you agree, Jacob.
Well, yeah, I said on the ground, I didn't think Sarr touched him.
Yeah.
And upon replay, any contact is minimal and is initiated by Jamie Vardy, not by Jose Sarr. But ultimately, Vardy gets his comeuppance by missing the penalty. A terrible penalty, I may add. A bit of a nice note to end on is Molineux journey after so many years of torment, it seems, from Mr. Vardy. Was the Wolf fan. He seems to score against every season and get a new celebration, doesn't he? But yeah, a terrible penalty, and I had a feeling, to be fair, I was remember saying on the ground that they're not going to score for it anyway. It's just the way their season's going, isn't it? Like I say, I think it was shortly after this the fight started breaking out in Leicester at the high end, which is just testament to how poor they are, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, that team just seems so void of confidence. I almost expected Vardy to score just because he'd announced his retirement. I remember the commentators saying in the highlights when I watched him, that would have been his 199th Premier League goal for Leicester. Wow. I'll be surprised if he reaches 200 by the end of the season. I don't see it happening. I feel like he'll just be stuck on 198. But that's not my concern. Jamie Vardy, you've tormented us for years. I'll be glad to see the back of you. Albeit, I do respect that you are a master of your craft in winding up all Premier League fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, excellent save by Jose Sarr, diving to his right-hand side to stop Jamie Vardy, and then giving it back to him as well after Jose Sarr definitely knew that shouldn't have been a penalty, which you love to see, really. And then, like you said, the Leicester scenes were ugly in that way, and fights breaking out amongst the supporters, with police having to step away from the South Bank even to go and assist in breaking that up. I think that just speaks volumes as the situation of their club as a whole. When you're going down, you have these sort of things happen, and it's not nice to see, even if it is a club that we have locality with. I wouldn't call it a rivalry, but yeah, of sorts, especially while Villa weren't in the Prem. It was sort of our only closest thing to a derby.
Yeah.
Before.
Speaking of Aston Villa, for any Villa fans, how was your trip to Wembley on Saturday? Did it go to plan?
Yeah, very great scenes at all the pubs around Molineux after the game, may I add, as we all go to get our pints after the points, much to Vitor Pereira's delight. We're all in the pubs, and they're all showing the Crystal Palace Villa semi-final at Wembley, and Wolves fans all erupting in cheers when Eze scored his goal. I could hear all the groans when Mateta's goal, that probably should have been a goal before that Eze one, was disallowed for a foul, which I don't think was a foul, but we're not here to analyse that game. I keep getting heavily sidetracked with all of the footballing brilliance that's been going on. Rodrigo Gomez, enter Molineux. He had a great chance after being played through by Cunha, which he dragged wide a couple of minutes prior. But Rodrigo, I love the passion from him. I love the energy from him. And he's someone I've been dying to see more of. We've both been raving about him on this podcast all season. However, a brilliant goal from him. Cunha 1v1 against Connor Cody, who gives his teammates some time to get back up the pitch, but doesn't manage to take care of Cunha himself. He lays it off to Rodrigo Gomez, who started the move, may I add, and then busted a gut making the run to be the one to get up there first because he wanted to be on the end of that chance. And absolutely fantastic finish, just smashing it home like first or second touch, and wheels off with an absolutely crazy knee slide. I don't know how he gained that much traction and went so far, but a man I'm so happy to see get this goal. Jacob, how did you feel when this third goal went in?
Oh, I was delighted for him. Obviously, a player that's so easy to love. Just gives it 110%, whether he's coming on in the 89th minute or whether he's starting the game. Runs, gives absolutely everything for the club. You can just tell a player that's happy to be here, is grateful for the opportunity to play in the Premier League, and seems to grasp it every every moment he gets. Is he still raw? Probably, but he's showing signs of a fantastic footballer. Very reminiscent of an early stage of Pedro Neto for me, which
Yeah.
if we get half the football out of Rodrigo Gomez, we're on to something there. Because obviously, as we know, Pedro's a fantastic footballer. Just make sure you keep your knees in check, Rodrigo, please. But yeah, I think a fantastic finish as well. It can't be taken away from him to almost a reverse finish going across goal from where he was first time as well. I mean, it's fantastic. And like you say, yeah, I think he gets so much traction on the knee socks. He hasn't stopped running from the north bank to the south bank. I say he probably runs more in 10 minutes than most of the team does in 90, and he fully deserves that goal. It's his first Molineux goal, isn't it?
Yeah. He has scored, but every goal he scored has been away, actually. Goal against Leicester in the reverse fixture. He must want to play the Foxes every week. And goal against Bristol City away in the Cup as well. That man certainly must prefer the away days. But yeah, his girlfriend in the stand nearby us was in tears for about 5-10 minutes when he scored. Like, she did not stop crying. And he was blowing kisses back up to her and his family, who were all very delighted to see him get this. But like you say, you took the words right out of my mouth with the Pedro Neto comparison. So raw at the moment, but so undoubtedly talented. I think it's an absolute strike by our recruitment team to bring him in the place of Neto, who left, because same sort of footballer, and dare I say it might be because of just how much he tries when on the pitch, and it might just be because of the effort he gives, but he seems to have more ability in my eyes. But I feel that's more down to his immense work rate than actual technicality compared to Pedro Neto. For a player we've, albeit not seen enough of yet to make that judgment. Just a massive fan of Rodrigo Gomez in general, but that wrapped up the win realistically for Wolves, and great scenes at Molineux, 6 in a row chance as far as the ear can hear and the eye can see. Vitor Pereira getting the whole team in line again to do the analyse with the fans, and doing it for each stand, South Bank, North Bank, even the Billy Wright got some on Saturday. And then, just brilliant to see. These scenes, long may they continue. Am I right, Jacob?
Oh, definitely. The atmosphere's back at Molineux now. I feel like a broken record now, where at the start of the season I felt like a broken record complaining, saying this is gash. Like a broken record saying I'm excited to go to the Wolves again now every week. And it's quite a great time for Folkestone, hasn't it? We've got to say with season ticket renewals going out on the 2nd of May, so a few days' time, people are going to be less feisty towards Folkestone, I believe, with the way things are going as the season ticket prices are frozen. I would still encourage fans to give Folkestone, not protest, but give Folkestone a hard time with these prices that are still too much, despite how well it's going on the pitch, because simply they will go up in the 26-27 season. I know that's looking far ahead, but I know I'm getting sidetracked here, but I think this is an important point to make, that we are still disgruntled about the board, despite the on-pitch things. This club is not being run the way it should be. But yeah, on the pitch, we have nothing to complain about.
Yeah, but the fear is this won't last forever with any club. And I think these price raises are justified. I think if Fosun had anything about them, they would have actually lowered the price a bit. But I think that's crazy to expect from our owners. Most clubs, if they had half-decent owners, a few of them you do actually see do that sometimes after the fan feedback. But I do not expect that from Fosun, who are quite a greedy corporate, in honesty. We saw that again with the Wolves women's squad, which is something we'll touch on to later, much to the disgruntlement of our fan base and the squad themselves, who have been absolutely ridiculed in a way by our owners. But let's talk about some statistics from this game. Since Pereira's first league game in charge, Only Liverpool and Newcastle have won more matches in the Premier League than Wolves. Two teams who, one, have just won the league this weekend. Newcastle have been on an emphatic run after winning their cup final and seem to be steamrolling everybody. And Wolves, wow, Vitor Pereira, what a turnaround. It's our first league double against Leicester since the 1957-58 season. Wow.
Remember it well.
Back in my day. Obviously up to 13th. And also, a bit of news, Semedo flirting about a potential contract extension now, which is something I'm so glad to see. Obviously, club captain, mainstay in the team for years now, Nelson Semedo, and player of the season last year, and a contender if it wasn't for Matheus Cunha this season.
Yeah.
Mr. Consistent, he seems to be now. How happy are you to hear that Semedo is possibly, I don't want to get my hopes up yet, but possibly thinking of extending his stay at Molineux?
Yeah, well, I'll save my delight until it's signed dotted lines. But yeah, to hear that there's potential it could happen when it looked like a bit of a sealed deal that he wasn't going to do it a few weeks ago. I'm very happy because, as I say, Mr. Consistent. There's not many fullbacks in the league that are as consistent as him. There's better fullbacks in the league, don't get me wrong, but there's not many fullbacks that are going to consistently be a 6, 7 out of 10 like he is every week. Obviously, hats off to Nelson because he did struggle his first season or so here at Molineux. Really found his feet. And there was a narrative a few remember when he first came in that he can't defend, and now he's probably one of the better defensive fullbacks in the league for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd personally rather lose 8-0 than lose Semedo. Honestly, because not only would Semedo be getting lost on a free if we lose him, and you might earn 40-50 million for 8-0, if not more. I think Semedo's more impactful to this team. I think whilst 8-0 is a fantastic footballer, he's replaceable, whereas I don't think you get that replacement for Semedo. I think if you would see Rodrigo or Pedro Lima go in there, we might be a bit more expansive going forward, but it'd be a gaping hole defensively as to what we're used to this season. You wouldn't be able to survive a season of Doherty there. All respect to him, he's had a fantastic season, but he could not do it without Nelson Semedo in front of him. So, yeah, and I think if you're going to lose Cunha and Sarabia, two of your highest paid players, you can afford to offer Semedo a bit more money.
I agree.
So, yeah, if Semedo can sign, then the core of the team stays strong, and I'm all for that.
I think it's important to add that we don't want to be losing our captain for, what is it now, fourth consecutive season? Yeah, that is ridiculous.
We lost Lamina in January as well, didn't we? So that's another one. We had Cody, Neves, Kilman, Lamina, and it would be Semedo to be 5, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that is ridiculous when you look at it like that. I think that's probably part of the reason we've been ending some of our seasons so poorly and starting them poorly, regardless of our league finishes throughout those times. But yeah, that's sort of it for this week as far as the men's teams go. But just before we wrap up, I do want to touch on something with the women's squad. Wolves women have been absolutely ridiculed by our ownership, it seems. Not the sort of press you want coming out of the club. Not journalists, from the players themselves, who half of the squad, namely from Beth Merrick, have put out a joint statement about how Fosun, going into the last game of the season, where they could have won the league, they didn't. They lost that last game of the season, but you have to think this was probably playing on their minds to be a part of that. Nottingham Forest inevitably wrapped up the league and won it by 3 points. But imagine you as a squad have worked so hard all season, busting your gut to be in this title race. And then you get to the last game of the season to hear that the ownership never submitted the bid or the paperwork for you to even play in the division above next season. Had they won the league, they would not have been promoted because Fosun didn't pay the money or do the paperwork 3 months in advance when it was a possibility even then. I think that is absolutely outrageous. You've got to back these ladies more. They work hard. They have pride to pull the shirt on and wear the famous old gold. Regardless of if they play Molineux, which they do on occasion, regardless of how you may view women's football in general, I think it's important to stand in solidarity with them over this, because I think it highlights some of the bigger issues which the men's team may also face in the summer. These are still our owners. It's a bit of a reality check. Bosun, whilst they claim to be one pack, they're not displaying that here. Jacob, what did you say Fosun's excuse was for not having done this?
Yeah, so it came out today that their excuse was they couldn't afford it well, they wouldn't believe they could afford it due to the possibility of Wolves getting relegated at the time. Obviously, cast your mind back 3 months ago, it was looking a very possible outcome that we could go down, but that's simply untrue. Non-league side rugby have been promoted from the same level of women's football, and they managed to pay it. And I'm not saying we're the richest club in the world, but when you compare us to a team whose men's team are a non-league team, and let's be honest, the men's team are what bring in the money. Wolves are financially way more secure than that. It's a simple act of negligence from Fosun as to why the women couldn't be promoted. And I really feel for Dan McNamara, forgive me if I'm butchering his name, the manager, but someone who's working army service alongside this, almost doing a favour to Wolverhampton Wanderers. And had Wolves gone on to win the league, like you say, his efforts would have been for nothing. The Wolves women also having a fantastic FA Cup run that, the club was soon to publicise, all whilst knowing that they'd drawn the short straw on them if they were to get promoted next season. I think if I was part of the Wolves women, if I was a follower of the Wolves women, I'd feel very hard done to here, and rightly so, because this is quite simply disgraceful. I've never heard of something like this happening at a top level club. This is something you'd hear at like a Bury or a Bolton when they were going bust. This isn't something that happens at a Premier League football club. It's a simple act of negligence, and it's unfair on these women.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just wanted to highlight that situation, given that it's doing the rounds within the fan base. Have to feel like the core of that squad will feel hard done by, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some of them move on from the club, given the attitudes displayed towards the product of their work, which was so all for nothing in a way. They will probably feel. But to end it on a more positive note, Wolves 6 wins in a row for the men's team at least. And we can now look forward to a game away at the Etihad. Unfortunately, on a Friday night, not the best time for kickoff. Gutted I won't be able to make it due to that. However, how do we see this one going? Because I think it'll be tough to make it 7 in a row here. If any game this season is going to end this streak, I do think it's going to be this one. Etihad is never a tough place to go. City starting to find some form again, dumping Nottingham Forest out of the FA Cup yesterday, much to our delight. Jacob, how do you see this one going? May I also add, Rodri and Haaland are now back in full training.
Yeah, I highly doubt Rodri especially will feature. Potentially Haaland will feature. I don't think particularly Rodri will be ready by Friday if he does it with a cameo. But yeah, City seem to be coming to their own a bit lately. Although that game against Nottingham Forest, I think any Forest fan will soon admit that was far their best performance. But they still had multiple chances in that second half to go on and snatch the winner. If the snake could finish his dinner, they would be in an FA Cup final right now, which I will admit put a big smile on my face. Sorry if you're not a Forest fan, but yeah, Man City on Friday. It's not mad to say we could get something though. I would happily take a draw on first glance. But City have proven a vulnerable creature this year. We gave them a good game, even under Gary O'Neill early this season. Didn't deserve to lose that game for our defensive credit, I don't think. But I'm excited. What have we got to lose, essentially? We can go to the Etihad with our heads held high. We can go and give them a game. And we can believe in ourselves. There's no reason why we can't go there and do something special. They're obviously still in a wild hunt for the top 4 at this point. Well, top 5 this season even.
Yeah.
But it's still absolutely wild. They could finish as low as 7th or as high as 3rd. It's going to be a very interesting end to the season if you're a Citizen. If I was to put a prediction on it, my head probably says we just get narrowed out and it's probably the end of the streak. But I'm going to back us for a 2-2 draw. I reckon it'll be quite an entertaining game, and I reckon we do call away with something. I don't know if you agree.
I would really love for that to happen. I do feel like this will probably also be the end of the streak. I feel like we'll get edged out by a team who just have more quality man-to-man, regardless of injuries. City are just so strong, as we know, with their depth and their endless stockpiles of world-class talent. But, yeah, I'm going to be positive. I'm actually going to say we'll somehow nick a 1-0 win and the streak goes on. Rodrigo Gomez off the bench, 90 plus 6. Go on.
I'll be a very happy chap if that happens.
Oh, if that happens, I would be delirious. However, I'm sure reality will set in on Friday when the whistle goes. But let's all get behind the team because we have nothing to fear. This is our best form in a long, long time, as the stats show. So we have absolutely no reason to fear it.
If we make it 7, we've never done that before, have we? I don't think in top flight.
Maybe not. Wow.
I think we have.
Wow.
Could be history makers.
Let's hope we do it. Well, on that note, we'll leave you here. But thank you for listening to the South Bank podcast. I've been your host this week, Cameron Gorman. I've been joined by Jacob Jones. And thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
The voice of a new generation. This is KIC Radio.